Welcome back, everyone, to Turtle's D&D Ideas.
Hey there.
This is our 4th deep dive episode. You know the drill. We find a cool D&D adventure idea, we break it down, and we figure out how you can maybe steal the best parts for your own game.
Exactly. We're not just reading off a page here. We want to get into the the guts of the concept, right? Find those unique bits that might spark something cool for your table.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, we're really digging deep. Quite literally, we're looking at an adventure idea called Echoes of Stone and Silence. So picture this. You got this remote desert town, okay? Built into sandstone cliffs, looks baked by the sun, but it's being shaken, like literally shaken by these weird tremors. And the big question is, what's going on? What's buried under all that sand?
That's the hook, yeah. And our mission here for this deep dive is basically to pull out the most interesting, the most useful pieces of this whole setup. We're talking unique mechanics, setting ideas, character stuff, potential endings.
Right, the kind of things you can just kind of grab and slot into your own campaign, or maybe build a whole one-shot around.
Precisely.
Okay, let's do it. So, tell us about this place, Ilar's Hollow. What's the situation?
All right, Ilar's Hollow. So it's the settlement out in the middle of nowhere, really kind of clinging to the sides of this sandstone ravine. Used to be okay, prosperous even, thanks to mining, but now it's pretty much defined by fear.
And that fear, it's all tied to these tremors you mentioned.
Absolutely. It's getting worse, apparently. Nightly shakes, buildings getting damaged, sinkholes just appearing.
Yikes.
Yeah. And livestock disappearing too. There's just this, this heavy sense of dread. People feel like something's deeply wrong right under their feet.
Okay, but this isn't just like unstable ground or bad geology, right?
Yeah.
'Cause that's maybe not the most exciting D&D hook on its own.
No, definitely not just that. The source material, it points to something specific. That mining they did, it wasn't just digging for ore. They disturbed something ancient. They disturbed Thulvax.
Thulvax. Okay, that sounds like something you really, really shouldn't wake up.
You really shouldn't know. Thulvax is described as this, ancient elemental guardian. And it wasn't just sleeping down there. It was sealed, locked away ages ago by druids.
Ah, okay. Sealed.
Yeah. And the mining broke those seals. So now it's stirring. The source calls it a dreaming hunger. And that hunger is what's causing the tremors, the sinkholes, all the weird stuff.
Gotcha. So it's a direct consequence. Their old prosperity literally dug up their current nightmare.
So where do the players come in? What's their role?
Well, the party gets involved somehow. Maybe they're hired by someone desperate in town. Maybe they just stumble upon it. But their job is to figure out the truth. What's really causing the tremors, and crucially, what can they do about it before the whole town just collapses?
Right. So what are the main goals? What does the adventure concept actually expect the players to do? It lays out a pretty clear investigative path, though you could probably tackle the steps in different orders. They need to start by investigating in town, talk to people, look for clues about the strange happenings.
Standard stuff.
Yeah, standard start. That naturally leads them towards exploring the old, unstable mining site. But the real key, the core of it, is finding and getting into this ancient place where Thulvax was sealed. It's called the Shard Vault.
Okay, so town investigation, checking out the mine, then finding this Shard Vault.
Yeah.
And that all leads towards what?
It leads towards understanding enough to make a big decision about Thulvax. The source suggests, 3 main options players might uncover. Find a way to reseal it, maybe try to negotiate with it.
Negotiate with a dreaming hunger elemental.
Hey, it's D&D. Or, the classic.
Yeah.
Decide they just have to destroy it. And how they investigate, who they talk to, what they find, that'll determine which of those options are even on the table for them.
Okay, I like that. A strong investigation leading to a really significant choice. But you mentioned something earlier, a unique mechanic. Something about the stone itself. What's the stone's whisper?
Ah, yes. This is, I think, one of the coolest, most borrowable parts of this whole idea, the stone's whisper. The basic concept is that the stone itself, especially really old stone, or stone touched by elemental magic, isn't just inert rock. It kind of speaks.
Speaks, like actual words.
No, not words. That's the interesting part. It's more like vibrations, echoes, these fleeting feelings that are almost like memories trapped inside the rock itself. Sensations.
Huh. So the environment itself is feeding them information, but maybe not always in a straightforward, helpful way.
Exactly. It makes the setting itself an active participant, a source of clues, but also danger. Mechanically, the suggestion is the DM rolls a d4 whenever a player, say, touches an ancient wall in the Shard Vault, or feels a really strong tremor, or maybe interacts with magically disturbed Earth.
Okay, a D4 mechanic. Let's break that down. What happens on each result?
All right, so a 1 on the D4, that's an echo of truth. This is the stone actually helping out. It reveals a real clue about the past, the danger, maybe where something important is hidden. For the player, this could grant them advantage on, like, their next investigation or insight check related to whatever's going on. The Earth is trying to clue them in.
Like the ground itself saying, hey, look over here.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, a 2s, that's an echo of fear. This is the stone resonating with all the negative vibes it's absorbed over the centuries. Maybe Tholvax's own fear or anger during its imprisonment, or the miners' terror during cave-ins. If a player gets hit with this, they gotta make a wisdom save. DC 13 is suggested. Fail that.
Something bad happens.
Yeah, they gain a level of fear. Disadvantage on their next attack roll or ability check. Has a nice layer of psychological tension.
Oh, I love that. Makes the environment itself mechanically threatening, not just atmospheric fluff. Adds real teeth.
It really does. Makes things feel genuinely unsettling. Okay, a 3 is an echo of memory. This is where you can drop some serious lore. The player gets the sudden, fleeting vision like a flashback or a dream snippet. It could be from Tholvax's ancient past or maybe the moment it was sealed. It's a cool way to deliver backstory, hints about Tholvax's nature, maybe even weaknesses.
So history isn't just in dusty books. It's literally baked into the walls around you.
Exactly, woven right into the experience. And finally, a 4 is the echo of hunger. This ties directly back to Tholvax. The player feels the sudden, intense, really unnatural craving, specifically for minerals, gems, precious stones, that kind of thing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh is right, because here's the kicker. If that player is actually carrying any significant gems or maybe an enchanted stone item, Tholvax senses them through the earth and knows they're there.
Wow. So carrying treasure literally makes you a target. A walking beacon for the giant, hungry earth elemental. That's brilliant. And potentially terrifying for players.
It really changes the dynamic, doesn't it? And I saw there's an optional thing, too. A trait players can get from this.
Yeah, that's right. If a player keeps tuning into these echoes, gets hit by a few different results, they can gain this optional trait, Resonant Listener. The upside's pretty good. Advantage on saving throws against tremors or, like, collapsing ground. Super useful in Ilar's Hollow.
Okay, advantage on tremor saves sounds pretty sweet. What's the catch? There's always going to be a catch in D&D.
Oh yeah, and it's a big one. Because you're so attuned to the Earth's vibrations, Tholvax becomes hyper-aware of you. It always knows where you are, as long as you have that trait.
Oof. Okay. Advantage on saves against the thing that knows exactly where you are at all times. That's a fascinating trade-off, and something you could totally lift, right? Drop that into any game with deep dungeons, earth elementals, heck, even just ancient ruin.
Absolutely. It fundamentally changes how you might approach sneaking around or dealing with the big threat.
Yeah.
And it ties so perfectly into the whole theme, right? The danger of digging too deep, the power in the earth, its influence creeping out, makes the ground itself a character, a challenge.
Definitely.
So where do the players actually encounter these echoes and start putting the puzzle together? Let's talk locations. Back in Ilar's Hollow first.
Right. So Ilar's Hollow isn't just scenery. It's shaped by this crisis. It's built into cliffs, feels kind of isolated, tough, but also really fragile right now. The places the players visit here are key for getting those initial clues, those first hints that something weirder than just earthquakes is happening.
So what are some of these key spots in town?
Well, the source mentions a few good ones. There's the Sunken Tap, aptly named, because part of it actually collapsed into a sinkhole. Yeah. It's the town's main gathering spot, so it's full of scared people, rumors flying everywhere, paranoia building. And you might overhear a miner named Bryn maybe muttering about how the stone is listening to him. Direct foreshadowing of the whisper mechanic.
Perfect way to introduce that weirdness early on.
Exactly. Then you've got Mayor Corrin's office. Nothing fancy, but it's where the town records are. Players might dig up journals, tracking the tremors, maybe find old mining maps, geological surveys, things that could hint at where the shard vault thing is.
Okay.
There's Wellspring Plaza, used to be the town square. Now it's basically a makeshift shelter for people whose homes aren't safe. Lots of desperation there. But it's also where they might find either a Vel. She's this former guardian who tried to warn everyone years ago and got ignored. Now she's desperate.
Oh, the Cassandra figure.
Pretty much. And finally, looming over everything, is the Crystal Works. This is the entrance to the old mine. It's unstable, dangerous now. But more importantly, this is where the miners originally broke through, damaging those magical seals that were keeping Tholvax contained down in the shard vault.
So the town gives you the human cost, the first clues, and points you towards the source of the problem.
Yeah.
The mine entrance. And deeper in the mine, That leads to the Shard Vault itself.
Right. The Shard Vault is the heart of it all, the source of the power, the center of the mystery. It's described as ancient, mostly forgotten, built by druids, not just as a jail, but almost like a temple, too. So it has echoes of both imprisonment and reverence.
Okay, so what makes the Shard Vault interesting to explore? Mechanically or atmospherically?
Well, as soon as players start going down the echoing stairs into the place, the stone starts humming. The source says they actually hear distorted memories, not their own, but Thulvax's memories of its long imprisonment. It's the stone's whisper baked right into the architecture.
Creepy.
Yeah. Deeper inside, there's the glyph chamber. This room is vital if the players want to try the resealing option. It has 4 big fading sigils: earth, air, fire, water. They need to figure out how to reactivate these, rekindle them somehow as part of the ritual.
A puzzle room tied directly to a major solution path. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then at the very bottom, the heart of the vault is the cracked seal, this massive, shattered stone disc covered in broken druidic and elemental symbols. This is ground zero. This is where the final confrontation, whatever form it takes, is probably going down.
Okay, so the locations themselves tell the story and guide the players through the history and towards the potential endings. Which brings us to the people involved. Who are the key NPCs in Ilar's Hollow?
The adventure highlights 3 really crucial ones. Each has a different piece of the puzzle. First, there's Mayor Corin Devlin. She's described as stern, pragmatic, very focused on keeping order above all else. She actually knows more than she's letting on about the real cause of the tremors, but is holding back because she fears mass panic.
Ah, the classic authority figure trying to manage the crisis, maybe making questionable calls.
Precisely. Her motivations are layered. Then you have Bryn Moslow. He's this gruff, maybe former miner. He's really troubled, haunted by the stone's whisper way more intensely than anyone else. And here's a great little detail. He unknowingly pocketed a gem that was actually part of the original seal back when the mine was active.
No way.
Yeah. And that gem is basically acting like a magnet for the echo of hunger. It's why the whispers are hitting him so hard. He's carrying a piece of the problem.
That is fantastic. Makes him a walking plot device and ties him directly to that core mechanic. Brilliant.
It really grounds his distress, makes it tangible. And finally, there's Ithera Vel. We mentioned her. She's a former druidic guardian of the Shard Vault. She actually abandoned her oath years ago when the town leadership basically ignored her warnings about digging too close to the sealed area.
Ouch.
Yeah. So she knows the history. She knows about the glyph chamber. She probably knows the ritual needed to reseal Thulvax. But she's bitter, wary of helping the people who scorned her.
Okay, so you got the protective but secretive leader, the haunted guy literally carrying the curse, and the knowledgeable but disillusioned guardian. And you mentioned their loyalties can shift.
They absolutely can. Depends entirely on how the players interact with them. What information do they share? Who do they trust? Which solution path do they seem to be heading towards? These NPCs can become vital allies, very reluctant helpers, or even turn into active obstacles based on player choices. They're not static.
Love that. Dynamic relationships are key. Okay, besides the townsfolk, what about actual threats? What kind of creatures might players run into?
The encounters are designed to fit the theme, obviously. Stone, elemental energy, mining dangers. You might encounter crystal shards. Think fast, fragile constructs made of animated rock splinters. They apparently explode when they're destroyed.
Ouch, like little rock grenades.
Kinda, yeah. Triggered by tremors or disturbances near the seals. Then there's a stone-bound guardian. This was originally a druidic construct meant to patrol the Shard Vault, keep things safe. But time and Thulvax's influence have made it unstable.
It's a straightforward fight.
Not necessarily. This is cool. The source specifically says it can potentially be reasoned with, maybe using that earth glyph in the puzzle chamber, or perhaps players could even convince it Thulvax is the real threat and turn it into an ally.
Oh, nice. So not just a smash fest. Rewards clever thinking.
Exactly. Encourages players to think beyond initiative roles. And then, of course, there's the main event, Thulvax, the hunger beneath.
Right. What is Thulvax actually like? Is it just like a giant earth elemental boss monster?
It's way more interesting than just that. It's ancient, it's sentient, but it's described as being less like a creature and more like a living piece of the landscape. A sentient mesa, almost. It communicates through vibrations, deep rumbles, unsettling silences. And here's the really crucial bit that changes everything. Its main motivation isn't just smashing things or causing destruction. It seeks reverence.
Reverence, not destruction. Okay, that really reframes the whole conflict. It's not just a monster to be slain.
It totally does. It elevates the final encounter. It might not be a fight. It could be a negotiation, a test of the player's understanding, maybe a moral choice. And the source material really leans into this. Combat with Fulvax and even some of the other creatures is often presented as optional.
Optional combat. I like that.
Yeah, solving problems through investigation, through puzzles, talking to NPCs, using the Stone's Whisper cleverly, that's highly encouraged and rewarded.
That's a great design philosophy to emphasize. Use your whole character sheet, not just the attack bonuses.
Okay.
Okay, speaking of rewards, besides, saving the town, is there any cool, unique treasure?
Yep, and it's all thematically tied in. For instance, there's an Amulet of Echoes made from a piece of the Vault's runestone, maybe. It gives the wearer limited tremor sense, lets them feel vibrations through the ground, and it glows faintly when Fulvax is nearby.
Handy in a place that's always shaking.
Definitely. There's also a Shard of Resonance. It's this crystal, humming with elemental power. Once per long rest, the wearer can cast Shatter centered on themselves, but it doesn't hurt their allies. Good for clearing rubble or maybe dealing with those exploding crystal shards.
Nifty utility item.
And then there's the Miner's Merc. This is a gem that's somehow been infused with a bit of Fulvax's essence. It grants advantage on saves against earth elementals, but...
There's the but.
There's the but. Like the Resonant Listener trait, it comes with a cost. It marks the bearer. Not necessarily to Fulvax, but to other ancient, powerful, earth-aligned beings out there in the world. You've basically put a target on your back for different entities.
More of that fantastic risk-reward. Protection from this one thing, but maybe attracts attention from others. These items feel really woven into the story.
They are. And they're not just dropped randomly. They're found in significant places. The Glyph Chamber, maybe a collapsed part of the mine near the seal, places connected to the history the players are uncovering.
Okay, so the players have explored. They've investigated, they've talked to people, maybe fought, maybe puzzled things out. They're at the climax, facing Fulvax or the cracked seal.
Yeah.
How does this adventure wrap up? What are the potential endings?
Well, the whole thing is built around player choice leading to different outcomes. That final confrontation. It might not be a single set piece. It could be that complex ritual in the Glyph Chamber, maybe needing Ibera's help. It could turn into a straight-up combat gauntlet if they decide to fight Fulvax head-on at the Cracked Seal. Or if they've really paid attention and understood Fulvax wants reverence, it might become this intense negotiation, a moral dilemma. Maybe Fulvax offers them power or guarantees the town's survival, but only in exchange for obedience or regular sacrifice. A test of their principles.
Having multiple paths to the end based on earlier actions, that's what makes choices feel like they mattered. And these different approaches lead to properly distinct consequences for the town.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The source outlines 3 main outcomes, and none of them are simple wins. If they manage to seal Fulvax again, maybe using the ritual, the tremors stop, peace returns. But the mine, the source of the town's old wealth, becomes sacred ground. Forbidden. Big economic hit for Ilar's Hollow.
Okay, peace at a price.
Exactly. Option 2, they appease Fulvax. Maybe they make a deal, promise regular offerings, build a shrine. The town survives, the shaking might lessen, but now they're basically indentured. They have to constantly dedicate resources, maybe even labor, to keep the elemental happy. That could cause serious unrest down the line.
Survival, but under a new kind of tyranny.
Pretty much. And option 3. They go for destroy Fulvax if they manage that. The tremors stop completely. But the source suggests the massive mesa the town is built into might fracture. The ancient shard vault could be lost forever. There might be massive geological consequences they didn't foresee. It's a win, but maybe a Pyrrhic one.
Wow. Yeah, none of those feel like a clean victory. They all involve sacrifice, compromise. Makes that final decision really heavy. And the NPCs, they react differently depending on what happens.
That's part of the lasting impact, yeah. Bryn, the haunted miner. If the mine closes forever, he might just leave town, totally lost. Ithera, the disillusioned druid. If they reseal Fulvax respectfully, maybe she regains her faith and stays to guard the place. Mayor Corin, she'd be hailed as a hero for saving the town, or blamed for the new burdens depending on the outcome. The town's future changes based on what the players did.
Okay, this whole concept is just packed with cool, modular ideas, which brings us back around to you listening. How can you take these bits and pieces and use them in your own D&D games?
Right, that's the core value here. You don't need to run this exact adventure start to finish. Just steal the good stuff. That Stone's Whisper mechanic. Adapt it. Maybe it's an ice cave where the frost whispers frozen memories, or a cursed forest where the trees murmur secrets, or an old temple where the carvings hum with divine power, or something darker. Just change the D4 results to fit your story.
Yeah. Or just the basic premise, right? An ancient being awakened by greed or disruption. That fits anywhere.
Yeah.
Cutting down a sacred grove and angering spirits, looting a tomb and waking the mummy king, damming a river and pissing off the river god. It's classic, and this gives a neat mechanical twist to it.
And the whole idea of environmental storytelling, where the location itself gives clues or warnings or has psychological effects like the stone's whisper, that's gold. Make your dungeons, your cities, into characters. And the dynamic NPCs, people with their own secrets, their own motivations, whose loyalty can actually change based on what the players do.
Yeah.
Don't just make quest givers, make people with stakes in the outcome.
Absolutely. And designing optional combat encounters is such a great takeaway, where maybe clever play or using the environment or actually talking to the monster can change everything. That rewards player creativity, not just their attack bonus.
Totally. And having multiple endings where none of them are perfect, that forces players to really think about the consequences, makes that final choice mean something.
Yeah, this adventure concept sounds like it naturally shifts tone, too, right? From investigation and tension in town to maybe exploration and psychological stuff in the vault, then potential big action or complex negotiation. That flexibility is super easy to borrow for whatever vibe your table prefers.
So yeah, think about your own game. Is there a place where the ground just feels wrong? Is there an NPC haunted by something they can't explain? Could that magic item they found have some weird resonance effect? Could the next big dungeon boss actually be reasoned with? Just pull these elements out and see where they might fit.
Definitely gives you a lot to think about from this Echoes of Stone and Silence idea. It's way more than just a simple desert dungeon crawl.
Yeah, hopefully breaking it down like this has sparked some useful ideas, some inspiration for your next session, maybe even a whole new campaign arc.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks so much for joining us for this fourth episode of Turl's D&D Ideas. If you enjoyed digging into this with us and maybe found something useful for your games, please do consider subscribing wherever you're listening. And hey, leave us a like or a review. It genuinely helps us keep making these.
We really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, folks.
And finally, just a little thought to leave you with. Something to chew on as you think about disturbing the earth in your own campaigns. Perhaps the real tremor isn't just the ground shaking beneath Ilar's hollow, but the difficult choices we have to make when survival and sacrifice are both on the line.